Howdy, folks. Good morning, good day. Hope you're doing well. Before we start this episode, I just want to do a quick update to say that I have decided to rebrand and change the name of the podcast from What Page Are We On to Nerdstalgic. I'll get onto the reasons why and all that in a side quest later this week, but I just thought I'd let you know that why things have changed, why the name's changed, and all that jazz, and that at the beginning of this video I do say the old introduction, which is howdy folks, welcome to What Page You On with me, Luke Ginger Bookworm. So I just want to clear that up, just so before you listen, that is why the name's changed. I decided to change it before after I did this video, this audio. So that is why the name is different, and that's why I use a different introduction to what we have currently. But like I said, I will get onto that later when we get into the side quest later this week. But that's what I wanted to guys let you guys know. So I'm going to go enjoy the episode, and I will speak to you on side quest later this week. Okay. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 4 of What Page You On with me, your host, Luke, the Ginger Bookworm. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you again, as I do every week, to everybody who wished me happy birthday. It means a lot. I had a fantastic weekend. Maybe in side quest I'll go into and I'll explain what I did, but I'll let you know it was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm 24 and I'm a year older, a year wiser. But I still look in the mirror and I still see, to be honest, well, I was going to say 18, but I'll be honest, without a beard, I look like I'm 16. With a beard, I look 26, So I tend to shave as much as possible so I can still retain my youth. Well, when I look in the mirror anyway. I got ID'd, I'm getting off track, but it was a long time ago, but I got ID'd when I had a beard and I was like, I'm not, it's nice to get ID'd because I'm of age, but it's just funny because I look so young, people still ID me. Anyway, that's not what I'm getting into. I was another little side story I don't want to, get into. But no, overall, I just want to say thank you to everybody who wished me happy birthday and listened to last week's episode. It was really, really nice, so thank you. So today, what we're going to talk about today? Well, today's topic is something that to be honest, I wasn't sure what this topic was going to be about for today. Today's episode, mainly because it's not that I've run out of ideas. It's more just the fact of as I'm doing it, I'm trying to think of new and creative ways to not just portray my nerdism to you folks, but also make sure that I'm accessible. So I do different topics. I don't just want to do fully Star Wars. I don't just want to do all gaming. I want to do different things. And so I've got other ideas elsewhere, but I just wanted to branch off and do something different. And I asked a few friends. They came with some good ideas, but it wasn't till the Sunday that I was driving home, and I was looking out the window, and I was just sort of daydreaming, thinking about what to write about. And as I was sort of on the way home, I was listening to a podcast by Freddie Prinze Jr., which if you listen to last week's side quest, you know that I'm a big fan of him and I'm really, really enjoying his podcast at the moment. But he had The Miz on, and he talked about doing what you love and talking about what you love, but being passionate about it. And he's completely right. Like, if you're passionate about something, you love something, go for it and prosper. You know what I mean? Just, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. If you've got a love or passion for something, do it. If it makes you money or not, if it makes you happy, do it, And I stewed on that thought, and I thought, you know what, that's going to be my topic is going to be. My topic is going to be, for today, my love of books, my love of reading. Now, I've touched on it a bit, my side of the reading part of it, but I haven't touched on where that branched off to and where I am today because of it. And I figured that would be an interesting sort of topic to get into, is sort of bring the folks in to know more about me as well, about my journey. And I think it'd be fun. So, as normal, I wrote down loads of notes that I'll be looking back and forth. But I think this topic will be fun. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start from where it all began. Why did I start writing reviews? Why did I start sort of getting into reading? Well, like I said, I've touched on it on previous episodes. For those of the folks that haven't heard the story, you can happily go back. But for those that don't want to go back, I'm more than happy to give you a refresh of the story. So, um, I'm dyslexic, struggled to reading for a long time, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten better, and it's become easier. And it's 2014. I finished school, senior school, high school. It's over, done with. Now it's like, what do I do next? What comes next? College, hopefully university, you know, get a job and all this jazz, what to do next. But I'm a 16-year-old kid, so my mind's not focused on that. It's like, okay, it's the summer holidays, you know, I just want to, school's out, school's finished, I just want to enjoy it. So I played through all my video games, watched all the movies and TV that I needed to watch. Then I had nothing left to do, so I had a big stack of books, and I figured, you know what, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to read these books. I've been pushing them off for years, and I'm just going to start reading. And that is basically where it began. My first book I ever sat and read from start to finish was The Good Psychopath's Guide to Success by Andy McNabb and Dr. McNair. And it was a fantastic book. Probably not the best book to start with, in all honesty. It was a self-help book, but I've spoke about those before in the past. I'm not too fond of them, but this is one of the good ones. I highly recommend it. It's quite fun and interesting as well, the premise behind it. But that's what I started with, and then from there, I've been reading books pretty much every day. I have been listening to audiobooks. I'll get into that later on, but I've been constantly surrounded by literature. Literature is literally just become a part of me. As I mentioned in previous episodes, it's no longer a chore. It is something that I cherish. As I mentioned in the past, it's for a lot of people, they take reading for granted because they can just do it. If it's something you can just do, you take it for granted. It's like breathing. Nobody really takes note of breathing until I've just mentioned breathing, and now I'm breathing. You don't notice it until somebody mentions either the word, or you sort of catch, or you go for a run, or you see somebody else yawning or breathing. And look, even now I've got myself yawning because I said the word. You don't notice it. It's one of them things. So it's the same with reading. If you can just do it, if you could just look at a piece of paper and just know what that word is, it's trivial. It's easy. But for people like me who's dyslexic with learning disabilities, it is difficult. You don't just see the word. You have to kind of look at the word, break it down. And for some people, it's still a struggle. I know a few people who are dyslexic and they're still struggling even now at being an adult. So it's some people it's easier to, others than not. So because of that, I've gotten to the point now where I cherish everything, every bit of literature, whether it be a menu or it be a flyer or a bit of scrap of paper. I just cherish every bit of language because language is beautiful. All languages are beautiful. It's our way that we can express ourselves freely among each other. It's a wonderful thing that humans have been able to um, conjure. The brain, the only organ that's actually named itself. How creepy is that? To think about. But it's one of these things that just humans have just been able to do, and it's a fantastic tool. It's a fantastic skill. It's something that we've just evolved, and I'm grateful for it. But coming back to that, because I've been so much literature, and because I had so much around me, it was just constant. Like, okay, well, I'm doing all these reading. I want to write down how I feel about them. I want to sort of talk about them more. I want to express myself with these, how I feel. So it started off with a little app that you might know of, you might not have, called Goodreads. You can get the web version. I use the one on my phone, the app. Goodreads is basically, it's a dream for any bookworm, really. It's a huge database which has, I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on it, but I would say it has basically every book every book ever written, sorry, on there. You just search the author or you search the name of the book, and you more than likely you'll find it. And on there you can see other reviews, other people have written about the book, and you can rate it from 1 to 5 stars, and 5 stars being great, one being very, very poor, like don't bother. And that's where it started for me. When I found the app, I was like, wow. Like at first, it just started off as a way to store all the books, because like I had all the books with me, but I wanted to know exactly how many I had read. I wanted to keep track of what I've read, what I'm currently reading, you know. And when I found out the concept of reviewing, and you could review on there, and it was free, and it was easy. You just got to finish the book, and then you can just write a review. There's no limit of how long it can be or how short. You just write your feelings down. So that's what I started to do. Like I started to write reviews. Again, they were quite very small, very they weren't fantastic, they weren't critical, they weren't great. It was just it wasn't like, oh, it was good, I liked it, the end. There was a bit more than that, but like they weren't fantastic. But it was the beginning of me learning to write properly, professionally, you know, be able to improve my writing skills. Like I've mentioned previous episodes as well, that I am a very imaginative person. I am a very creative person. I love to write. Like I said, I'm currently writing my own novel. Really, I should be doing short stories, but I thought, screw it. I'm just going to write a book. It's, why not? It's stressful, but it's incredibly fun. And again, it's one of those things now that I've had so much practice, and I've read so many books, which again I will get onto this part in a minute, but that it's just become an easy thing. Again, I don't think about it when I do it. It's just something that I can do now because I've practiced. But I'll get onto that in a minute. So because I was writing the reviews, it was like, okay, so I wrote the reviews. They're getting better. They're not great, but they're getting better. So what next? So I decided, well, I'll do a blog. Everybody has a blog, you know. So I went on Blogger, made a blogger. I started posting them there. And I was getting a few hits, I was getting a few views, not a lot, under 100, nothing great. And then I wrote a review for Stephen King's It, and that got over 100. And it went, no comment. Like, one of the things that I will say and state now, because it will come up later when I start talking about Instagram and things like that, is that I don't care for likes. I used to. I don't care for likes much anymore. I prefer interaction. I prefer comments. For example, even if it's just as much as I read this book, or I like this book. This book was good. I don't care. What I like is just the fact of to know that you enjoyed it, or if you liked it, if you didn't like it, tell me about it. Talk to me. A conversation. I want to open up a dialogue with people. So that's what I wanted on my blog. I wanted comments. I wanted people to comment, even if if it was as simple as your review shit. I'm like, okay, if that's what you think, fine. Or I like your review, or I like this book. Any sort of constructive criticism, all feedback is constructive. All feedback is good, no matter how horrible it may seem. It's all good, and that's basically what I wanted to. I wanted really was just comments. weren't really getting the introduction that I needed. I wanted really, if I'm being completely honest. But again, as I quickly learned, you can't force people to you can't force people to comment, which again, come on that later. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep doing the blog, but I'm probably not going to focus on it as much. University was creeping up on me, and I needed to apply, so I kind of slowed down, and I just stopped doing it completely. I just wrote my reviews on Goodreads, and I was getting people liking them, and I had a few comments here and there. It's still, even now, quite rare that I get comments, but when I do, it's quite nice. It makes me smile. So I just left it on there. Cut to maybe 2-3 years later, 2018, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on my sort of my sort of personal page, and I'm just flicking through, and as I was going through my followers, I noticed that I had my old account. I was following my old account, which I completely forgot about. And I clicked on it. I was like, oh god, I remember this. And this account was just it was for drawing. I'm not the best drawer in the world. Again, I'm self-taught. I sat down doodling, and eventually, again, with practice, you get better at it. I'm not the best artist in the world. I'm not Bob Ross, but I'm all right. Again, it's just a skill that I haven't used in a long while, but I can draw a few things. That's not the point. The point is I forgot that I had this account, and I got access to it again after trying and troubleshooting to remember the password. I got back into it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start fresh with this page. I'm going to do something that I love, and I'm going to just go for it. Because I'd seen on other people's accounts that I'd been following on my personal one, people doing like it's called Bookstagram, and like you basically the idea of you're on Bookstagram and you post books either yourself or um, it could be just the book itself, and then you could write the review, or you could do a few paragraphs and so on and so forth. And I quite like the idea of that. I thought that's quite easy, quite simple, something I can do, something I can get into, you know, and that's what I began with. That's what I started, and that was pretty much the beginning of the Ginger Bookworm, of where that started. Really, I just began with posting sort of photos of myself holding up books, and because I had so many reviews on Goodreads, I basically just went for the bottom of my Goodreads page of the first book I ever read, and just went from there. Just went slowly up that list of just going through, and I quickly learned the do's and don'ts of Instagram. Again, I didn't really know how it worked. The idea of you shouldn't post if you post every single day, people just get oversaturation and people get bored. And if you post too many posts in one day, you can't guarantee that everybody's going to see them. The do's and the don'ts and the hard parts about it. And um, it, it it was a bit of a nightmare to learn, but what I want to do is try to give some tips and tricks for people listening to try and give an idea of what's worked for me, and hopefully if you're listening and you're interested in starting up a sort of doing something that you love, mainly pertaining to books, that hopefully my tips will kind of help you with that. So that's what the next segment's going to be. But yeah, so that's basically the idea of it. Was just now I'm on Instagram. What next? So what happened next was this. Just to be clear on that last episode, I just remembered as I was preparing for this segment that I said in the last episode that I was driving. I wasn't driving. I was a passenger in the car. I can't drive, so I just wanted to anybody who knows me who's like, Luke can't drive. I was like, yeah, no, I can't. So I just wanted to clear that up. So this segment is about what goes into basically doing book reviews, what goes into writing them, and then eventually posting them and people seeing them. So what goes into a book review? Well, firstly, common sense wise, you've got to read a book. You've got to play the game. You've got to watch the movie, TV show, no matter what it is. You've got to experience it first. One of the hard parts is because to say, because people are different on this subject, is the fact of it's not just about watching it, but it's about retaining that information as well. You might not retain it all, but retaining enough where you can write about it confidently. Because if you love a book, you will find that you retain the information a lot easier. That if it's, for example, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I love that book, so I remember every square inch of it. Whereas if I had a book that I didn't like, depending on how much of a struggle it was or how much I pushed myself to finish it, even though you never really need to finish any book, because if you don't like it, move on. But it was still that thing of, even if I didn't like it, I would still have that much of an impression on me that I would remember enough to explain as to why I didn't like it. For example, Stephen King's The Stand. Wasn't a fan, didn't enjoy it, I thought it was too long. I don't really want to get into it too much because I could talk all day about it, and a lot of people defend that book, and I don't want to start an argument. But what I'm trying to say is the fact of whether you love a book or you hate a book, TV show, movie, game, it will have an effect on you, and you, positive or negative, you'll still be able to retain what you thought and feel. Even if you didn't remember the book, you'd still be able to know how you felt. For example, like I said, if I used Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, for example, for that one, for me, it is a very silly British book. It's a book that it's a it's like Terry Pratchett, but in space. Best way to explain it. It's very British. It's very silly, very imaginative. It's a different perspective on the universe. The idea of, like, before Douglas Adams went around talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, everything to do with space was either horror or serious. You had Star Wars, even though Star Wars is quite fanciful. It's kind of based off knights and um, Japanese culture. It's still very sort of serious at times. It wasn't until like the prequels that it started getting silly. You've got James Herbert. You've got Dune again. Dune, an epic space opera. High fantasy, very very serious. You know, uh, there's loads of others. Like for example, Hyperion. Again, space horror, space sci-fi. Very serious book. So up until Douglas Adams, space had always been something that was just, you can't be silly. Space is dangerous. Aliens are dangerous. You have to be serious about it. It's a very intrepid, thing. And Douglas Adams came along, and he was like, "Well, no. I want to write a funny, interesting, slapstick, if anything, comedy. About a man on Earth, Arthur, who has his house bulldozed. His friend Ford comes along, takes him for a drink, tells him that the world's going to end, and that because he saved his life, he's going to save his mate's life, and he's going to hitch a ride. And next thing you know, he's with Vogons, and they are telling him poetry. That you should never let a Vogon tell you poetry because it's mental torture. And he's on an adventure, and he finds out that the Earth. Well, actually, you know what? I don't want to spoil it for anybody because it's generally, even though it's an old book, it's a really good one. The point is, in that little segment there that I just done, I was able to, even though I haven't read the book in a long time, it's like generally it's been a couple of years. I need to go back and read it. Even though I haven't read that book in a long time, it still had that much of a profound effect on me that I can sit here and easily have a conversation about it. I could break the story down in parts. I can break down Arthur, how the Arthur is on the basis of it just your average Joe. He is as common as the word Bob. You know, but as you go through the adventure with him, you realize the fact of yes, he is an average guy, but he's everybody. He's me. He's you. He is an idea that if we were on that sort of adventure, it's that kind of like, what am I doing here? I'm in my pajamas. This is crazy. I'm in space. My planet. What? That kind of like really confused of like, I'm aliens. What? I just want to go home and have tea. It's that kind of like that sort of character where he's very much confused, but when he needs to be sort of the man of action, he can be, but he's still, again, at the end of the day, human, and that's not a bad thing. His characteristics is human. All the other aliens kind of look at him like, again, he's just primitive. When he in a way he is, because he's not as advanced they are, but it's his human nature that is what causes him to be so lovable, so enjoyed by the others, because he's different. He's not like the rest, because even though they're different species, they're all basically the same, because they're all following the same sort of chain of, this is how we should act because we are a galactic sort of race of different species, and the humans are different. So he's a fish out of water, but he's a very interesting character. And again, I could do that with all of them. And this is what you have to do when it comes to writing reviews. This is what you have to do when it comes to writing something down, when it comes to, again, movies, TV, talking about books, talking about video games. When you break it down, when I did my review on Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, or even Mandalorian, or when I did my review on the Eternals, I broke down each character. I broke down the things I liked, what I didn't like. I not just wrote and talked about how I felt, but I also went back and I read what other people had written, other reviewers. How did they rate it? What did they think? Because I always recommend people, when they finished a book, if they loved it or they hated it, go back and read other people's reviews. It doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. If you read other people's reviews, they might mention things that you had missed, or they might highlight things, or then you go, no, no, you're now I'm not got the rose tinted glasses on. I see what they're saying. Again, you might not agree with it, but it gives you a different perspective, and that gives your work credibility. Your work and your writing, the thing that you are trying to produce, gains more weight because you have done your research, what other people have said. Agree with it or not, you have done your peer research, and you have seen that I might not agree with it, but they have a point, and I will reflect on that when it comes to doing my own writing. Now, you might never mention what they said, but you will have that in the back of your head of like, this character was great, but there were times where they, X, Y, and Z. The point is I'm trying to make is the fact of, when you do any sort of type of written work, you have to be critical of your own work. And especially if you want to do reviews, if you want to do it for fun, then by all means just read it and be like, I enjoyed it, it was great, this was good, that was bad, I recommend it, yes or no. But if reviewing something is something that you want to get into, and it's something that you want to do, I would say professionally, but unless you're getting paid for it, it's not really professionally. But if it's something that you want to do, then I would just recommend that you just be critical of your own work in terms of you can just sit here and go, oh, all the characters are good, I loved it, you know. But if you go, for example, Arthur's a good character, I really like Arthur, but if I had to nitpick, there are times where he does get on my nerves because he's not like all the other aliens, or the fact that he's a little bit of a nitwit at times. Again, you don't have to. It's just more the fact that when people read it, they can notice that you've not just sort of read it, but you've retained it and you've taken in everything really. That you haven't just saw the character for what they are. You've looked under the layers. You've seen that this character is not just a very sort of confused and joyous sort of person, but he is an average bloke. He is just a typical guy that is wearing pajamas. He's a fish out of water. He's a fish out of water, and he just wants to go home, but his home is gone, so he's stuck. He wants tea, but there's no tea in space, so he's a bit cranky, a bit moody, a bit sort of like on edge. But he can't freak out because if he freaks out, no one, it won't fix anything. So, again, none of this is portrayed really in the book, but it is. You just have to read between the pages, read between the lines. You get these moments of when you read a book, if the character is well written, or even if it's not well written, but on the terms of a character is well written, you get these moments of when you read the story, you can see these different layers. You can see what the author was trying to say, what the author was trying to do with this character, where they were trying to go. And so that's basically the whole point. That's the whole point I want to go with actually writing a review. What it goes into writing a review, it's sitting down, retaining the information. It might be you have to watch the movie more than once, or you play the game more than once, or for me, I'm one of these people that can, if I enjoyed it, I can retain it in one sitting, whether it be no matter what it is. But most people, some people aren't. Some people, they have to read it or watch it a few times before they can do that. I'll see. One thing I want to say when it comes to reading, writing, playing video games, anything like that, go at your speed. You don't need to rush. I know it might not seem like it, that you constantly have to kind of, I have to get this book out within a week so I can get on to reading the next week, the next book, or play the next game, so I can review and review and have loads of content. No, I say take your time. You'll have a better product in the end, and a better paper and a better piece of work at the end if you took your time. And again, it translates fantastically, because people aren't stupid, especially people who read reviews. They aren't stupid. They are going to read them and notice, oh god, this was rushed. Did they actually read the book? Did they play the game? Did they take their time with it? Or so if you take your time and you write not just how you feel, but also emote. You know what I mean? Put yourself into the page, into the words, and people can read that, and then they want to come in more. And that's what I try to do in my writing, is the fact of I have my own style of writing. I have my own style of being me. And we all do. We all have our different versions of ourselves. We all have I was going to say we all wear a mask, but that's completely different. Uh, we're all different people, so we all have different ways of writing, different ways of telling a story, or different ways of explaining things. Otherwise, things will be boring. It's just all about finding your style. But one thing I will say is don't rush. Uh, take in as much information from whatever it is you're reading or watching, and then just sit down. Sit down and write. It might be crap, you might not like it, but your first one might not be fantastic, but it's improvement, it's practice. Especially if you're somebody who doesn't write a lot, or somebody who doesn't sit down and like try my best way to explain it. Like I said, writing is a skill. Writing is something that we can all do, but when it comes to actually writing down how we feel or writing down how we think about something is difficult, because that's not something that we're asked to do in day-to-day life. We all can sit and write, either type on the computer or write on it with a pen or write on our phone. But when we're actually asked to sit down and to say, what do you like about this? Most of us shut up and like, it was good. I liked it. And then people are looking at you like, what did you like about it? Did you like the taste of the ice cream? It was all right. What was all right about it? It was vanilla-y, and that's no help to anybody. So, like, because we're not used to it, it is difficult at first to just be like, I liked it because element of P. You know what I mean? It was good because X, Y, Z. That's what I'm trying to sort of explain, is the fact of your writing won't be good at first, and don't be disheartened about it, but eventually it will get better with time. You just have to take your time. Some one of the best quotes I heard, and I loved it, was rushing shows aggression. Rushing shows, you know, anger. If you rush something, it just shows that you didn't try, that there was no love there, that there was no patience. It was just, I've got to get it out now. Rush, 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 rush. It's out, done. And like I said, people will notice it, and people will take notice, and we're like, well, if they're not going to really bother to try, then why should I stay and listen? Why should I subscribe? Why should I follow them if they're not going to at least take their time with it? Even if the writing is shit, they tried their best, and that's what means the most to me. Whereas patience and um, taking your time shows creativity, shows love, shows passion. Why do you think, whenever you look at Leonardo da Vinci's work, or you look at Bob Ross, or you look at Roald Dahl, or you look at any sort of artist, why is their work seen as a masterpiece? Why is it when you look at a Rembrandt, you go, that is art, that is perfection? Because they took their time. They could have rushed it, and yeah, it probably still would have been great if Van Gogh had rushed his Starry Night. But if he had rushed it, it probably wouldn't have been as good if he took his time. But no, he took his time. He put work into it. He put effort into it, and that shows creativity. You know, going slow and taking your time promotes and shows creativity. Shows that it's not just the fact of you wanted to write it, but you loved writing it, that you enjoyed it, that you enjoyed what you did, you enjoyed what you created because you took your time. So slowing down shows creativity, where speeding up shows brash, anger, aggravation, impatience. So I always, like they always say, in life, take it slow. In life, don't rush. If there's something you love, if there's something that you want to do, you will do it. Nobody can tell you not to do something. If only you can tell you not to do it, and if you only you can tell you to stop. The best way I ever had it to explain to me was when I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were talking about the idea of, if you had a child that wanted to do something that they really, really loved, for example, boxing, if they wanted to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. And I was talking to my mate about this, and he was like, well, this idea, next heavyweight boxing champion of the world, he's a scrawny kid. I don't think he can do it. I don't know if he can become that, but he really wants to. And I said to my friend, well, just support him. Only he knows when he should stop. Only he knows when it's not going to work. If it's when him getting in the ring, or him getting knocked out, or him realizing on his own that it's too much hard work. You can't stop him. The best thing you can do as a parent, as a friend, as whatever, is to support them. And when they decide to stop is when that dream ends, because you should never tell anybody not to do something. You should never crush anybody's dream. You should always tell somebody to do it, and if they want to give up, it's their decision. All you have to do as a parent, as a friend, as anybody that is support them. And that's the way it is. You just support, you give help, and then they make their decision if it's for them, if that dream is actually the dream that they want to do. And for me, my dream is, I've had many dreams. I wanted to be an astronaut, but I had support of my family. I wanted to be a streamer, and I wanted to do gaming and that. And again, it was like, okay, go for it. This is what you want to do. Go to university and learn to be a game designer. And I did. I went to university and learned to become a game designer. Granted, it hasn't come to fruition, and I don't work in a gaming industry. To be honest, it wasn't until my final year of university that I realized that actually what I want to be is a writer, that I want to write stories for video games, for movies, for TV. I want to write my own book. Again, you can't really make much of a living off it at first. It's not until you become successful that you can make a living off being a writer. But it wasn't about that. It was because I wanted to do it. And my parents were like, well, go for it. If that's what you want to do, right. And that's just the idea about it. If you want to do something, don't listen to anybody else. Take your time, be patient, read the book, watch the movie, take it in, embrace everything, and put yourself into it. Take your personality and pull it into your writing. Don't write because this is how you've been taught how to write. Don't write because people tell you this is what people like. Don't even listen to me at times. Take yourself, put yourself into that pen, into your fingers, into whatever it is for you to type out how you feel, and just write down how you feel about it. How you feel, in yourself. Does it make you happy? Does it make you sad? Do you want to cry? Do you really want to jump up and go, yes, the world has been saved? Or, oh, he's died. My favorite character's died. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you depressed? Just express it. And one thing that has helped me with my writing, within doing reviews, again, it's going to sound silly, but as I said, you get so used to talking and writing about how you feel about a certain topic or a certain book or whatever, that it helps with mental health as well. It helps with you and yourself, because like I said, a lot of people don't admit how they feel. They won't admit to themselves, let alone their friends or family. So if you're writing down constantly, I liked this book because it was great. It was fantastic. It changed my life. Oh, I didn't much like this book because the characters were naff, but the story was good. Eventually it will come to the point of it will get easier to talk about how you feel yourself. And in turn, it will be when your friends or your family come around and goes, well, how do you feel? Because you know what? I don't feel great. I'm not very happy at the moment. I'm a bit down, but I'm doing okay. And again, it's just that first step. And I'm not saying it will work for everybody, but it's just that idea of that the more you write and the more you write passionately and the more that you express how you feel on the page, the easier it will be in day-to-day life when it comes to, those serious questions of asking how you feel and your mental health, and that is the key, really. It's just expressing oneself and putting oneself into it, and then improving oneself's work and life, because you're doing something that you love. And because you're doing something that you love and that you're passionate about, you will then be happy in yourself, and then your mental health will improve, your life will improve. It's all about passion. It's all about loving. As I said, the worst thing in life, the saddest thing in life, is wasted talent. And if you have talent, if you have a skill, if you have something that you're good at, do it. You know what I mean? If you have something that you love, no matter what it is, no matter how many people said you're crazy for doing it, or you're an idiot, or whatever, do what you feel is right for you. Nobody can tell you what to do apart from yourself. You decide when it's over. You decide when the dream stops at the end of the day. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody else telling you you shouldn't do it, or do this, do that. I want to give advice, But advice is great, but you don't have to listen to every bit of advice, and only really have to take a grain of it. A grain, a sand, a grain of salt, a small piece of advice. You know, take it, take whatever you need, and just prosper from it. So that's basically what goes into writing about what you're passionate about. Not just about writing reviews, but again, if you wanted to write a book, write what you want to write, what you're passionate about. So that's what I'm trying to say. When it comes to writing reviews, is you just put yourself into it, be yourself, and then it will show on the page. So I hope that bit helped. I hope that section helped you, and I feel like I went a bit too spiritual there, but it will hopefully help you to understand that no matter what your dream is, whether it be to write reviews or to do something else, you are the master of your ship. You have the choice of where this ship goes. Don't let anybody take control of your ship. You are the captain, you are the admiral. Don't allow mutiny on your ship. If there is a mutiny, there is also a plank, right? Use it, kick them off the plank, and let the sharks eat them, okay? You don't need that sort of negativity in your life. You get rid of it, you nip it in the butt, done, and you carry on with your dream. So that is the idea of writing reviews, passion and love. You just have to put yourself into it. So on to the next sort of segment, posts. Now you put the passion into it, now you got the work, what next? So what next is, so now that you have put your passion and put your love and put your creativeness into your work, you've got a piece of work that you are proud of. It might not be fantastic, it might not be great, but it's your work, and that is what matters. You've got your feelings down, you've got your passion on a piece of paper or a screen, it's there. What do you do with it next? So I'm going to explain how I do it and how I went about doing it, and hopefully we can kind of bring in how you will do it as well. So as I mentioned, did a blog, didn't really work. Then I moved on to Instagram, and I've basically been on Instagram since 2018 till now. So it's about 3-4 years I've been doing it, and even now I'm still learning. Even now I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I want to do. With my page, with my work, I'm still learning. I'm constantly creating. I'm constantly trying new things, and that is the key. It's that constant of like, finding your groove, and then learning on best ways to evolve it, to change it, but to sort of stick to your groove. Like a lot of people will say, oh, don't do the same thing over and over again, don't get stuck in this groove, don't get stuck in this sort of pattern, reinvent yourself, change, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, that's all fine, that's all good advice, but I say, if you're in a groove, don't go into another groove, don't go into another funk, stick to what and just reinvent and change that groove. For example, it's best, I'm trying my best to figure out how to explain this, because it is a very visual sort of thing I'm going to try to explain. But when I started doing reviews, I did my research. I looked into how other people wrote reviews, how other people structured them, how other people sort of spoke about them. And it was the same when it came to doing posts, and it was the same about doing this podcast. I sat and I listened to podcasts for 2 years straight of just trying to get an ideas of how they're laid out, what the topics are, what they talk about, how you have a conversation, how you talk. And it even led to me just sitting around talking to myself, practicing the whole idea of being able to talk and talk and talk for hours and hours and hours. It's do your research, look what's popular. So when it comes to doing book reviews and posting them on Instagram or Twitter or wherever you post them, it's do your research, look what other people are doing. And when I did my research back in 2018, when I looked into it, majority of the accounts I could find were all posting photos of just the books, and some people had props, some people would put sheets down, and you'd have a nice little sort of textured, rustic background, or some people would have the pictures in front of their huge libraries of just panel wall to wall of books. And one thing for me was like, well, I want to be different. I want to be myself, but I also want to not do what everybody else is doing, because it just feels like everybody is doing the same thing. Everybody is doing what everybody else is doing, because what everybody else is doing is the norm, is popular. It works, and it does work. It's taking pictures of books. It does work, especially if it's aesthetically pleasing. And, it captures the eye. You're like, oh, that's nice. Click, like, oh, I like that. Follow. It does work. So but I always say, just because it works doesn't mean that you should always copy it. I always say, if you see somebody do something and that works, and why it works, and you've watched them and you can understand, okay, I know why it works, because of it looks good, or it's easy, or it gets a lot of likes, it gets a lot of follows. Okay, well, that works. Well, how can I translate that to my style? And that's the idea about it. You get your own style, you get your own way of doing things. You put yourself into it. So for me, I was like, you know what, I don't mind taking photos of myself. I don't mind showing my face. I don't mind being me, the man, the person behind the camera, behind the books that I'm reading. So I thought, what, I'm just gonna just post pictures of myself posing with the books. So that's what I did. I just went, and it started off with me just holding up the books in not very good lighting, in not very good sort of one-handed photos, very sort of duck facey sort of photos. But that's how it started. You've got to get going. And like I said, when I did my first sort of episode of the podcast, the hardest part of doing this podcast was the trailer, was having to cram everything about myself within a minute, and then once I knew I could do that, it was easy then to sit here for 30 minutes to an hour having a conversation about a certain topic. And that's the idea of most things in life. Once you do it, once you just grab the bull by its horns and tackle it to the ground, and you go and you conquer it, it's that kind of thing of, I can do this. This is something that I can do. And so it was just, the first picture wasn't great. I've still got it on my account. It's at the very bottom. I still look at it every now and then and kind of smile to see where I began. But it was one of them things of just like, it's not great, but it's a beginning. It's a start, And from there, I just kind of tried new things. And I thought, okay, so people seem to like it. I'm getting followers. I'm getting likes. People seem to like it and find it funny, the idea of me just sort of standing there, just looking like an idiot, but, trying sort of my best to, be positive and sort of thing. So I figured, well, let's try something new. So I decided to get some like editing software, which didn't work, but I got some editing software, and I took a picture of myself, an old picture, and I cropped out my head, and I started putting just I thought, like, if I stop doing my face, stop doing doing my body, like actual photo of myself, and I just stencil my head as like a watermark on the post, would that be, intro? That's something funny I could do, or just have like little pictures of my head every now and then on like bits of whatever's on the cover. Like if it's a picture of a few people on the cover, I might put my head on top of their head and be like, I'm the character in the book. Silly little things like that. Again, staying in my groove, staying in my lane, but inventing it and adding things to it, and hot wiring it and trying new things, and just generally just, I know this works, but I'm gonna follow this, but I'm gonna verge off a bit, kind of make the whole line a bit more chunky, a bit beefier, a bit more wiggle room, and I'm gonna sort of come round and try something different. And it did. It worked for a while, and a few more people started coming along, found, oh, this guy's a bit silly, this guy's a bit stupid. I haven't seen anybody on Instagram do this before, So again, people were like, oh, well, he's got decent reviews. My work was getting better with every book that I read and every review I wrote. My work was getting better and better. I become better at it. I was learning best how to sort of emote myself into my work, and people were appreciating that, as well as, I was putting myself and everything that was me into my post, being silly, being creative, being an idiot. I was putting that into the pictures as well. So that was coming off. So even if the review was shockingly bad, at least people would see the photo and goes, I like him, he's silly, I'm going to follow him because I want to see what he does next. I was being creative, I was being different, I was trying to stand out by not standing out. I was just being myself. Now, some people would say, was if you're just being yourself and you are a standout person and you're standing out, but I disagree. I am just being me. I never chose to stand out. I just chose to wanting to be myself, which is different, because we're all different. We're all different from each other, even though we try to tell ourselves that we're just like each other. At the end of the day, we're all different. But we're people as humans. We are scared of the word different, because different means weird, different means bad, different means this, and we all know it's not. It's all horseshit. That the whole idea and the stigma behind the word different. Different is good. Some of the best people I've ever met in my life are different, in different ways. Again, exactly, Um, but the point is I'm trying to make is people saw that. People saw what I was trying to do. People could see that I was trying to be myself, that I wasn't copying everybody else, that I was just being me. And being me, again, it's the nice part about it, for my mental health as well, that people were accepting me for me. People weren't accepting the character that I was trying to play, pretending to be online. I was being myself, and people liked that. And as somebody who sort of struggles with the idea of growing up, of am I too weird, am I too different, am I this, am I that, and to get the acceptance of strangers that I'd never met, who eventually became friends, was a very lovely thing. And this is why I recommend people just to be themselves. About how weird or crazy you feel like you are, there is somebody out there for everybody. There are people out there who are just as weird and wonderful as you are. You've just got to find them. And when you find them, it's like you've met them, you've known them your whole life, because they're so alike to you that they are who you are. They are who you want to be. They are your friends. They are your family. You will find them eventually. But that's what I mean. If you just be yourself, people will see them. And those sort of people that you want around you, those sort of people you want to talk to, the mad, crazy, weird people, or the happy or the cheerful people, or whoever your personality is, those sort of people will come and find you and want to follow and interact with you. So that's the idea about it. So be silly, be creative, be yourself. And so it went on for like that for me, putting my photos, my picture of a stencil of my face on things. But I eventually stopped using that software, because I'll be honest, it was a nightmare to use, and I just couldn't be bothered to use it anymore. And then I went on Snapchat, and Snapchat had recently updated at that point, and they added these little Bitmojis, these little miniature animated versions of yourself that you could create. I thought, that'd be a fun little thing. So I just started putting those on. So it'd be the book cover, and then I would get as close as I could, relatively similar Bitmoji people to fit the either topic of the book or the book itself. So, for example, if I read a Star Wars novel, I would try to find one of a guy looking like he was using the Force, or looked like a guy that was using a lightsaber, or a sword, or something like that. Or if it was an adventure book, some guy looking like he was trying to be adventurous, And that's, again, evolution, changing, constantly trying something new, trying something different. Again, that was well perceived. People liked it, and then but people were like, "Well, you don't do really pictures of yourself anymore." So I started taking pictures of myself again, and then I started taking what I learned, and I started putting those little Bitmojis into the pictures with me. So I'd have one sitting on my shoulder reading a book. I'd have one maybe on my chest or on my head, of like flying around. Again, depends on the topic of the book, would then pertain to what Bitmoji I would use, and it's just gone from there. Like nowadays, I don't use them as much, because I'll be honest, I forget, or that I've come to realize now that it is hard to find um, Bitmojis that reflect specifically what it is the book is about, especially how I'm now going into, say, like I'm in a period now of my reading where I am reading such weird, wonderful, niche books that it's hard to find specific little Bitmojis that fit what it is I'm trying to say in the review, or the book itself. So I don't use them as much anymore, because it's just difficult. But if I can find them, then I will use them. But it's just evolved from there. I learned better camera angles. I learned about lighting. I learned about photography. I went to a friend of mine who was learning photography at college, university, and they told me about different ways that you can sort of different types of lighting and different sort of angles, and the old idea of getting a a tripod. So I had a mini tripod. I got one of those. Tried it for a bit. It worked sometimes. Didn't work all the times. I started using props. So like I started like wearing costumes. If I had it, I'd dress up. Um, I tried loads of different things. I just wanted to have fun with it. I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly evolving. As I'm getting older, like I said, I'm getting older and I'm getting wiser. I'm learning new things. I am becoming a better person, but I'm also becoming a more creative soul, because the more I create, the more I want to change what it is I create. I want to keep evolving, keep inventing, keep trying new things. And that's what we should do as humans, as people, is that we should, as souls, we should constantly trying to reinvent the wheel. We should constantly keep trying new things, and we should constantly like, okay, this works, but I could do that better. I could be better. It's and you. It is a dangerous road, because it's that whole idea of like, well, you might never ever get to the point where you are better. Like, what is better? So it is a bit of a dangerous road. But I always say, if you're creative, then naturally you will want to just keep changing. You will constantly want to keep doing new things. It will eventually get boring for you if you keep doing the same thing. If you're a very creative soul, you will just learn that on your own. You don't need me to tell you. Just keep creating, keep inventing things, and eventually you'll be like, oh, I'm bored of this now. I want to do something new, because that's the whole point of being a creative soul, is the fact of you are restless. You don't want to sit still. When somebody tells you to, you know, sit still, you're instantly wanting, your legs are twitching, you're fidgeting, because you don't want to sit still. You want to be out there fighting, you want to be out there inventing, creating, helping. You want to be doing something with yourself constantly. By the way, a bit of a hydration. Drink water, it's really good for you. But that's the idea about it, constantly create, just be different, but be yourself. And as I mentioned before, likes and comments at the beginning, likes and comments feel good. And I won't lie, it does. It's that idea of acceptance. It's that idea of feeling wanted, feeling loved. That all that work that you've put into the post, all the work that you have done putting into writing the review. Again, no matter what it is, where like specifically this is to writing reviews, but again, it can work for if you had a YouTube channel, if you want to be a streamer, or if you want to be a writer, be a doctor, be an author. No matter what it is hard. You put all that work into something that you're passionate about, that you love, and then as it pertains, online, you only get like 10 views on your YouTube video that took you hours and hours and hours to make and edit, and you only get 10 views, and you don't get any new subscribers. Or you make a post, or you write something and you post it online, and it gets half of of likes, or hardly gets any likes, and nobody comments. And again, it is this art. And even now myself, I won't lie, like I mentioned before, I've gotten to the point now where I don't care much for likes. I did a recent post of writing this. I did a post yesterday. It was a Doctor Who one, and on average, I usually would get maybe 100. But as the months have gone on, for some unknown reason, the numbers have dropped. I don't. Again, it could be the algorithm, which again I will get into that in a minute. But my numbers have dropped, and on this latest post, it's probably the lowest one I've done in had in a long time. It's 24. What's the word I'm looking for? 24 likes. Again, it is disheartening. It is one of them things of like, well, what did I do wrong? What is it that people didn't like? What is it about it? And you start to critique yourself, you start to overthink it. And again, that's normal. It's normal because again, you put a lot of work into it. You kind of just sit there and like, well, what did I do wrong? And again, when nobody's commenting, nobody's liking it, it's that you kind of sit there and you're like, well, why does nobody want? If no one's going to tell me why they don't like it, you tend to overthink and think of bad things. So that's normal. It's not a good habit, but it's a normal thing to do. And one thing I will say that I've learned is there was a there was a joke that was made, and it was I think it was made by what's his name, James Blunt, and somebody asked him on Twitter why he only has a certain amount of followers, and he basically he retorted saying, well, Jesus only needed 7, and it's just that idea of, I know it's silly, and again it's a silly joke, but it's the idea of it, you only need one person to support you and to follow you to know that you're doing well, and that one person is yourself. You only need to love what you do. You only need to support what you do in yourself to know that you've done good. You don't need the acceptance and love of others to know what you have created is worth anything. It's nice to know, don't get me wrong, and I do it myself. Even though I'm saying this now, there are moments where I do buckle. I'm like, well, maybe, screw it, fuck it, I won't do it anymore. But then I think, well, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. I've even wrote it down on a piece of paper, and it's something that I look at every now and then. I keep it in my pocket, or keep it in my wallet, and every now and then I'll look at it. Whenever I doubt myself, whenever I just sit there and I go, I can't do something, or I'm not getting enough love or attention on something that I've created, I look at and I feel like giving up. I look at that piece of paper and I go, no, yeah, I've got talent. I'm not going to waste it. Like I said, the dream doesn't stop until you stop it. So don't let anybody, just because you don't get enough likes, don't just because you get enough comments, doesn't mean anything. You don't need validation. You just need to validate yourself that it was good, that you liked it, that you loved it, that you put the time into it. Yes, it would be nice if people were to like it and to watch it and to read it and comment and all this jazz. It would be nice, but again, you can't make other people, and it's that you can't make people do it. Free will and all that. They if they don't want to, then they don't want to. But you also have to think a lot of these apps, Instagram, Blogger, YouTube, Twitter, no matter what it is, if it's a social media app or it's an app where a lot of traffic and there's a lot of people doing certain things on there, you know, there's an algorithm, there's a program behind it. The basic premise of an algorithm is to take data to see what works and then to funnel what works and to basically hide what doesn't. So, for example, on Instagram, you post a photo of a book. For example, if it's Harry Potter, Harry Potter is very popular. Despite all the controversy between J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter is still a very popular thing to post and to talk about. And because the algorithm sees the word Harry Potter in it, it will boost it up. It will be like, oh, well, Harry Potter is really popular. A lot more people might see it because it's Harry Potter. But if I took, for example, Horrible Histories, and I took Gorgeous Georgians, again, Horrible Histories is quite popular. In the UK, it's a popular TV show, and most people read it when they were kids, like I did. But it's not as popular as Harry Potter. It's not as popular as Hunger Games. It's not as popular as what's currently being talked about in YA, in young adult. It's an old book. It's a niche book. It's a book that not many people know about. It's just not that popular, so you won't get much likes on it. Or you might not get many comments, or it might not be seen as much. So it's not always the fact of your followers don't care or the people that follow you don't care. It's about the algorithm. If you do YouTube video and you do it about 10 best ways people have fallen and hurt themselves, naturally humans just love watching other humans in pain. So we're going to watch it because we're psychopaths. We just like to see others get hurt. It's weird, but that's just the way humans are. But if you did a review 10 best 10 best sunsets, there might be people out there who like sunsets, but you can probably find there'll be more people that want to see stuff about people falling over and hurting themselves, like real proper jackass kind of stuff. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way the society is, and that's just the way things are. Now, eventually, something might change in the future, and people are like, what, I really like sunsets, and then sunsets might blow up, and people just start posting about sunsets, and people start watching the videos about people hurting themselves. And again, it happened with J.K. Rowling. At one stage, you could post anything about Harry Potter and get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of likes and follows and comments. And then the whole controversy came up with J.K. Rowling, and people stopped posting about it, and it stopped becoming popular. It's still successful, it's still popular. People can still post about it, and you can probably get a few good sort of likes on it. But the point is, because it's no longer in the mainstream, because it's not something that's sort of widely talked and sort of supported as much as it was, the algorithm says that, so you can still post it. It just wouldn't be as popular. The next big thing would be popular, and that's the thing. It's the idea of another thing that I want to get into is keeping up with the trends, which I'll get onto in a minute. But it's that idea of you might not always get the love that you are looking for. You might not always get the likes or the comments or the as amount of subscribers as you want, no matter what it is that you've made or platform you use. The point, it's not the point. The point is that you have worked at it, that you've put the effort in. Yes, it would be nice if someone was to say you did a good job, but as long as you say that to yourself, as long as you know what you did is a good job, it doesn't matter how many followers you've got, it doesn't matter how many likes you've got. Like I said, Jesus only needed 7. Granted, one of them betrayed him, but we won't get onto that topic. Judas. um, but the point is, you know, as long as you support yourself, you've got the best follower, the best friend, the best subscriber in the world. It is yourself. As long as you support yourself, as long as you believe in yourself, you have the bestest friend you could ever ask for, which is yourself. You know, and some people might say that sounds quite sad, that some people might sound quite lame. I say to hell with those people. You know, love yourself, support yourself, be your biggest fan, you know, and it doesn't matter how much sort of praise or love or whatever you get. What matters is that you put your heart and soul into it, you put yourself into it, and it is a part of you, and you are happy with it, and that's all that matters. So I hope that sort of helps there. The whole idea of, you know, making posts and, you know, it just be yourself, put yourself into it, create, change, try new things, reinvent the wheel. You know, just because it's a circle doesn't mean, you know, it can't have a few dents in it to make it a bit more aerodynamic. The point is you're always trying, always learning. So, next one. Trends. Following trends. We all like to follow trends. So, the next topic is trends. It's chasing trends, chasing that constant sort of new hype, new sort of next best thing, you know. One thing with me is that I've never been one to try to follow trends. The last time I tried to follow trends was when I was in senior school, probably year 7, year 8, and I quickly realized the fact of trends change so rapidly that unless you are the one that sets the trend, you won't be able to keep up, because people's opinions, styles, society, what's good, what isn't, what's in, what's out, all this jazz are constantly changing. I don't know who decides what's in or what's out, or who decides what's cool and what's not cool. All I know is that somebody starts a trend, somebody starts something, somebody raves about something being good, and everybody else copies it, and then by the time that you finally got around to it, it's getting around to you, it's either over or just about finishing. And it was when I was in school. When I was in school, everybody had to have. Nobody wanted a backpack anymore. Everybody had to have a shoulder bag, you know, like a messenger sort of bag. Everybody had to have one of those, you know. So again, I wanted one again because everybody else had one. I wanted one, and it was like, well, you know, you need one of those, but you need a bag from JD, because if you had a bag from JD to put all your PE stuff in, it's cool. So again, gotta get a bag from JD. It means I gotta go to JD, go buy something from JD. Well, I've already bought the bag from JD, so I've already got the other bag to put my PE stuff in. Then it was like, oh, everybody's now wearing. I don't know what I can't remember what they were called, but they look like that joke within like Back to the Future 2, where Marty McFly's wearing that sort of like puffer jacket thing, and he goes in, and the guy goes, "Are you a sailor? Are you scared that you're going to drown?" And that's basically what people look like. That became the fashion again in school. People wearing these big puffer jackets with like no sleeves. People wearing them in the winter. Their body was warm, but you can see they're divering, that they're freezing. But because they look cool, it's fine. And again, it went the same with trainers, and it went the same with hairstyles and different sort of colours and all this jazz and blah de blah de blah. And eventually, around about year 8, I was like, I can't keep up with this. I can't keep up with it. I can't keep asking my parents to keep buying me things. I don't really have any pocket money. I can't buy them myself, you know. So it's just the fact of it's stupid, it's idiotic, and I don't want to dress like everybody else. Again, it's that sort of thing. As you learn through school, you learn and you become who you are and who you really want to be. You basically become you, and eventually realize that it's not me, it's not style, not my sort of love or passion. So I eventually was like, nah, I'm not doing that, not for me. It's been the same since, really. Like, you know, trends in music, trends in fashion, all this jazz, games, movies, blah 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 blah, all that. Like, as you can see, I don't care much for it because it's not important. It really isn't important. Just because people give it validation, just because people give it value, doesn't mean it costs anything. For example, if I had a £10 note, the only thing that makes that thing worth money is me giving it value of a £10. Or I take it to the shop and the shop owner says, I want £10. I give him £10 and he says this piece of paper is, I agree, he agrees, it is legal tender, that it's the equivalent of £10. And then you have the banks and then you have all the economy and they all agree that that piece of paper is legal tender, that we all agree the value of this piece of paper is just £10. But if the world was to be destroyed tomorrow and money was to become irrelevant, the stock markets and the economy crashes, the world's been destroyed, there's not many humans left, I could then go to a shop, or what's left of a shop, the ruins of a shop, with a shopkeeper that's currently got really smoking hair and black, and he looks like he's out of Mad Max. And I give him some money, and he goes, "We don't accept that no more. It's bottle caps." I'm like, "Bottle caps?" He's like, "Yeah, bottle caps. I want 10 bottle caps." And I'm like, "But this worked a couple of weeks ago." He goes, "Yeah, that was before the apocalypse. What's worth value now are bottle caps. That is pre-war money. That doesn't work anymore." So it's now that £10 note that was worth £10, 10 lots, is now nothing but a piece of paper again. And again, that's the point. The point I'm trying to make is the fact of, I could buy the best brand new Nike Air Jordan shoe, whatever shoes, right? And people are, "Oh God, you spent £400 on them." I'm like, "Yeah, man, £400 and these new trainers. It's awesome, isn't it?" A week later, a brand new pair of Yeezys or whatever comes out, and all my shoes, my validation that these shoes are anything more than cool, has gone out the window. And I could go to school or go to college, whatever, and people are like, "Yeah, they're cool, but it's all about the brand new Yeezys now. It's all about that brand new hat. It's about the brand new jacket. It's about the brand new coat," and you just can't keep up. And the reason I'm saying this thing is because it's the same with books. It's the same with trends in books. Currently, as I've seen in books, majority of what's popular at the moment is YA, young adult. That's what's popular at the moment. I'll be honest, I don't really want to talk about it because I don't know much about it. I don't really read much in the way of YA. But from what is most popular, people just like the books, romancy sort of YA books, and really high fantasy, erotic sort of fantasy books. I don't read them. If I'm being honest, if anytime there's ever a sexual scene in a book, I skim and skim. I just don't like reading sex scenes in books. It's just so awkward and cringy. One of the things I hate about reading Stephen King, because that guy, it's horrible. I don't want to get into it. The point is, you can't chase trends. If you chase trends, you will find yourself being skint very quickly, and being very sad and depressed because you can't keep up and because you've got no money. Because there are people out there who can read books incredibly quickly. I've seen people who have had books that are like really big, 400 plus books, and they've managed to read them within a few days. Some people read them in one sitting, so you won't be able to keep up with the majority of people how quick they read, especially if you want to take your time and you properly want to take pride in your work and take pride in your writing and in your posts. And again, this is kind of contradictory, but this is why I wanted to start with those and not start with chasing trends, is because you will have a moment where you're like, well, I'm not making as many posts as many people, I'm not getting as many likes, people are unfollowing me, because there's people out there posting the same book, but they are managing to read it quicker than I am, they manage to make posts quicker than I can, and they manage to write the reviews better than I can or faster than I can, and people are liking all theirs, and by the time that I get around to doing mine, the trend is gone, the popularity is gone, it is no longer popular, it's no longer a trend. People have moved on to the next book now, and because of that, I still get likes and still get a few followers of people who are still reading it at a slow pace like me, but you are getting those people that are you're not getting as many likes or validation as you wanted or as you could have got if you were quicker, and you get that constant moment of like, well, I can't finish this book, but I'll quickly write a post of like, I didn't finish it, but I'm liking it, just so you can stay in track. And then the next thing you've got to quickly finish that book, and then you've got to get the new book, then you've got to quickly finish that one. You're not retaining information, you're not taking information in, you are just reading, and it becomes a chore. Then it's no longer a passion, it's no longer a hobby. Reading would then become a chore because it's something that I just have to do because I have to keep up, because if I go too slow, then I'm not going to get many followers, I'm not going to get many likes, nobody's going to want to subscribe to me. And then you start doubting yourself and you go, why the fuck am I doing this? I don't like myself, I don't like what I'm doing, my work is shit, my writing, and then you start to and then it all starts to crumble. And this is why I say, and I tell people this many, many times, and I still tell people this who I know who are the trend people who try to chase the trends: stop it. Don't chase that trend. Read what you want to read. I don't bother chasing trends. I read whatever I want to read. I don't, and that's probably why I'm not as popular, or I'm not as many followers, or I don't have as many people liking or commenting on my stuff, because I don't read what's popular. But I don't care. I read what I want to read. I will happily sit and read Les Miserables, which is a 1,000+ book. Take my time, take me a month to read it, and to write, and then maybe even half a month to write the review, and then to post it, and if for not getting many likes, and be like, I don't care, because I've just read Les Miserables, and Les Miserables was fantastic. I just sat and read Crimes and Punishment, and I learned so much about Russia at a certain time, and then I learned about mental health and the struggles between the character in Crimes and Punishment. Currently, right now, hopefully in a day or two, I'm going to start the Count of Monte Cristo, which is again a very sort of big book. I'm going to start the audio. The audio book is about 53 hours long, and that's going to take me most of February to get around to listening to it, and then to write a review about it. I'm not reading books that are popular. I'm not reading books that are trendy. I'm reading books that I want to read. And that's what I recommend that anybody does. Anybody listening, read what you want to read. If there is a book that you want to read that is trendy, that is popular, then that's fine. But I'm just saying, don't chase that train. Don't chase that dragon, because you will never catch it. It will constantly be ahead of you. No matter how quick a reader you are, how good of a writer you are, you will never get to a point where it's like, I can read this book, taking everything, write a review, same day, same time, make an absolutely excellent post, get it out, and then be on time. Because even if you are on time, even if you manage to do all that, you can't keep up with how many trends have been set. Just because that book's popular and you've managed to jump on it while it is popular, there's still 10,000 other books that have been published, have just been published, have just been read. People are going crazy for them. You'll never keep up. And that's what I'm trying to say, is the fact of it comes with everything else I've been trying to say, is just be yourself. Read what you want to read. Do what you want to do. Do what makes you happy. If you want to sit there and you want to read all of the Winnie the Pooh books, and then read all the Chronicle of Narnia books, which I've done both, even though nobody else is doing that, even though nobody else is writing reviews about them things, if you want to sit and do that, do it. All right. And those people that like your work for you, not for what it is, not for what you post, but those people that like for your work, for who's behind the work, you, who's doing the work, you, who's writing the reviews, you, who's reading the books, you. People who support you will stay. Those that want to be will be. Those that want to go will go, and you can't stop that. And yes, it's disheartening when you have loads of followers and you lose loads of followers. It is disheartening when you have used to get loads of likes, and then you stop getting loads of likes or getting loads of comments. It is disheartening, and eventually you'll get used to it. Me now, I've been doing it since 2018, and I'm still not really used to it. I'm still not entirely comfortable whenever I do something and I put loads of work into it, and I feel like giving up at times, but I look at that piece of paper and I go, well, yeah, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. I've still got a lot in me. I'm still young. There's still a lot of things I want to do. There's still a lot of books that I want to read, and I've gotten to the point now that I care less. I I care more about the people that follow me the people that the loyal ones, the people that care, the people that want to be here because of me. I care more about them than any validation I get on a post. You know, I care more for what they think about what I produce in terms of how in terms of the writing, in terms of how good it is, how good I've tried to be, not how many likes I've tried to do to please people. I care about the loyal people, the people that like every photo, that are always there to give me support whenever I'm down. It's the people that are there for you, and it's also I'm trying that to be there for myself, because again, like I said, I am my biggest fan, I am my biggest critic. Nobody can criticize me or give me as bad feedback as I do to myself. It'll be the same with you. Nobody could give you the more criticism than yourself. You will always criticize yourself because it's just a natural thing that humans do. You'll It's the idea of, what I used to say, practice makes perfect, but then somebody close to me said I shouldn't say that, because you'll never get perfection. There's no such thing as perfection. Even in the universe, in stars and galaxies that we look at from afar, they look perfect, they look fantastic. But when you get down to and you break them down and you actually figure out how they work, it's chaos. It's controlled chaos. At any moment, anything that's beautiful or perfect, like a star, could go supernova and destroy this planet and destroy half the universe, just by sucking it all in by the force of gravity and pulling us into a black hole and crushing us and destroying us. Nothing's perfect. There's no such thing as perfect in the universe. We just, again, it's our idea of giving value to money. Until we look at things and we give it value, we give it a value of beauty, we give it a value of perfection, that it becomes worth something. Whereas, the Mona Lisa, not saying I'd ever want to do this, because again, in my eyes, being somebody a lover of old paintings, the Mona Lisa is just nothing more than just a bit of paint on paper, which again is very crude to say, because again, it's the Mona Lisa. It's criminal to say that, but it's true. If you want to break it down, that's what the Mona Lisa is. It's generally just a bits of paint in a certain order that make an image of a person on a piece of paper. It's only because of who did it, and because there's only one, that we give it value. you know but at the end of the day, it's not, it's perfect, but it's not. It's only perfect because we give it validation. It's that idea of practice makes improvement. Practice improving, because there's always room for improvement. There's always room for getting better. A better you, a better work, a better at driving, better at reading, better at learning, better at dancing, speaking, exercise. Whenever you do something, the more you do it, you improve, and there's always room for improvement. Whereas practice makes perfect. No matter how much you practice, you will never be perfect, because you will always be your biggest critic. You will always say to yourself, I didn't do well enough. And it's the idea of it is, don't chase the trends, because you won't keep up, and then you will beat yourself up because you can't keep up, or you beat yourself up that you don't make enough money to get back enough to what you've spent, so you can keep chasing more trends. You know what I mean? Reading books are an addiction. Don't worry, I get addicted to books. I've got an addiction to books. I will go out, well, I used to, not much anymore, but I used to go out and spend, money on books, and I used to realize why I was running out of money. And eventually I learned to places to go to get books for cheap, which I will talk about that on another episode. But the point is the fact of, you know, all of this that I'm trying to say, and all the things I'm trying to talk about, is the fact of, don't try to be anything other than yourself. Don't try to be perfect. Don't chase something that you're not. Be yourself. Read what you want to read. Put yourself into work, into your work, no matter what that work is. And even in this terms of writing, put yourself into your writing. If you want to be a writer or you want to be an artist, it doesn't matter. If you are a creative soul, naturally you just want to put a piece of your soul into your work, and it will show. Again, that's why I say, Mona Lisa is just a painting, but again, we give it value not just because what it is and because it's the only one and because who wrote it, but who drew it and painted it, but also because Leonardo da Vinci, he was a creative soul. He was one of the biggest creatives that ever lived. He was a genius. We give him the class of a genius because he was so inventive. He was so imaginative. But again, it's that sort of thing of like, Da Vinci was creative, and because he put his soul into his work, we give it value because it's beautiful, because we can see how much work he put into it. And also because Leonardo da Vinci, he never finished a project. He would start a project and it would take him years and years and years to get around to finishing it. And it was the same with Mona Lisa. He started the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa was a different painting when he began. When he began, it was a different painting of a different woman. And it wasn't till maybe, I don't know as to when, but it wasn't until sometime later that he repainted it. He painted over an old painting that he had done, and he did a different painting than what we know of now as the Mona Lisa. And we only know that because of technology's advance, that we can see underneath the paint, and that we can see that there's another painting underneath the paint that he did before. So again, he was always striving to change, to be creative, to involve his work. That, you know, he had another bit of work, but he basically was like, this work, I don't know, I'm not Da Vinci, I wasn't alive back then, but it was probably like, well, this work is good, I like it, but you know what, I'm going to paint over it, I'm going to start again, I'm going to do something different, I'm going to do something else. And it took him some time, and again, it took him a few years, but eventually he ended up making what we class as a masterpiece, which is the Mona Lisa. And that's my point, is the fact of ever changing, ever evolving, writing what you want to write, reading what you want to read, watching, playing, listening to, wearing outfits. Be you, be yourself, and then that will put that into your work. And in time, your mental health will improve, your physical health will improve, you'll be more happier because you are doing what you love. You're not doing what you're being told to do, you're not being told doing what you've been made to do. You are doing what you want to do. What matters here is you. If you're not happy with it, you're not happy with it. It doesn't matter if other people don't like it. If you like it, then it's fine. And that's what I'm hopefully conveyed to you and to you folks listening, is that, you know, you can't be perfect, but you can improve, you know. And some people might say that's not a very good thing to say, but for me it is. You know, I feel like, you know, your work might not be fantastic, but as long as you enjoy it, as long as you like it, that's all that matters. You know, don't chase the trends. You know, write what you want to write, do what you want to do, and just be happy. And that's, I know I'm sort of reiterating myself, but repetition is a great way. If you repeat something in 3 times, you are more likely to retain that information. You know, it's how it works in speeches, and how people try to explain things. Whenever you talk to somebody who explains stuff, or who is a philosopher, or is spiritual, or is somebody who is a speaker, they get up in front of crowds of people and speak, is they will use repetition, because the more you repeat to yourself that I am good, I am good, I am good, the more you believe it. You know, it's that constant thing. I know I'm repeating myself and I'm going over the same things over and over again, but I want to solidify the idea that you are perfect the way you are. Even though I said that there's no such thing as perfection, what I mean is the fact of you are who you are, that you are great, you are you, and only you can tell you who you are, or what you want to be, or what you want to do. It's all about you. You. Or best, if you're listening to this, I want you to say me. I am happy. I love who I am. I love what I do. I am creative, and I want to do something that makes me happy. And this podcast makes me happy. Every episode, I am overjoyed that I'm doing something that I love. You know, I hope it, again, every time I mention it, almost every episode, but I hope that my love of whatever it is I'm talking about conveys to your ears, that when you hear me talk about it, that you can hear the passion in my voice, you can hear the emotion. Because I could just sit here and do this, whatever this sort of topic is, and I could talk about book reviews and I could be very basic. Oh, you just do this or just do that, and oh, you could try that. This worked for me, you know. But you can tell by the tone of my voice, I'm not really engaged. I'm not really feeling it. Whereas when you've been hearing, hopefully, when you're hearing me talking, you know, normally, you know, you can hear that. You can hear that the passion, and You probably can't hear them, but as I'm talking, I am using my hands. Nobody's here. I'm literally looking out my bedroom window, but I'm moving my hands. I am trying to explain using my hands even though nobody can see them, because I talk with my hands. I'm one of these people that is very sort of like, if I say a word, I'll be moving my hands around. I can't sit still because I'm creative, especially when I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about. I will speed up of how I talk, or I will slow down, or I will use my hands. And it's about hopefully conveying to you, the listener, that it's okay to to be yourself. It's okay to be creative. Nobody says that you have to be somebody you're not. Just be you and just be happy with who you are. And when it comes to when it pertains to doing your work, or matter whatever that work is, as long as you're happy with it, it's perfect the way it is. You know. Um, so yeah, that's basically that's it. That's what I want to say on that topic, is just be yourself. Again, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but the more I say it, the more hopefully you will hear it, and the more that it will sort of stick in your head, and it will be a question or a selection of things that you will hopefully sit and you will stew on, and that you will think about, and then hopefully from there it is something that you decide to follow, no matter what your dream is. Again, I use this as a way to explain why I got into doing book reviews, but it's changed. It's evolved now into, I started doing something that I loved. It was difficult. It was hard, but I kept at it. I kept changing. I kept being myself, and eventually it's led me to here, to now, to episode 4, of a podcast, to doing stuff that I love, to doing something that I love, to being passionate about it, to having the confidence to do this. Like, if you told me back in 2018, when I started doing the book reviews properly on Instagram, or even back 2014, when I started writing reviews of reading books, if you told me that I was to be where I am now, I would have laughed. I would have gone, well, I would like to do a podcast, but no, I don't have the confidence. No, that's not something I would do. Or like, oh, and I'm all right writer, but I'm not a fantastic writer. You know, I would have said that. I would have just laughed and went, I'm glad. Thank you for having such support and such um, have an idea that I could do those sort of things, but I don't think I could. No, well, no, thank you, but no. I would doubt it. I would shrug it off. I'd smile and I'd like giggle, but I wouldn't believe you. But look at me now. Look at me. I'm doing this. I'm talking to you. I'm trying my best to um, have a conversation about a topic of being yourself, as well as talking about what how being myself has gotten to me where I am now. It's a very lovely, beautiful thing, and I could happily sit and talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Sadly, I only get 2 hours to do this, but I enjoy these sort of conversations. And I'll be honest, yeah, I might have gotten a bit spiritual here, but again, I can't help it. When I speak, especially about something that I'm quite passionate about, my spiritual side comes out, and I can't help not. I just emote that way. But again, that's what I mean, is the fact of, I didn't plan for it to go this way. I didn't plan for this conversation, this topic, to evolve in this way, but it has. And it's become a very mellow, very chilled out, very spiritual sort of thing. And again, it's very beautiful. And this is the thing: if I didn't try it, if I didn't have this idea to have this topic, then I wouldn't have had this conversation, and I wouldn't have learned things, and I wouldn't have expressed myself. And then, it's just a really wonderful, beautiful thing. So yeah, I hope this has helped, and I hope that you've got the ideas and topics, and then you can just go forth and prosper, and just do whatever it is that you love, whether it be book reviews, or you want to be a streamer or a YouTuber. Just go for it. Or you want to do a podcast, go for it. It's incredibly freeing. So yeah, I hope that helped. I really, really do. So finally, to sign off, before we end, I'd like to do what we do pretty much nearly every week, which is what I'm currently reading, listening to, watching, and playing. So currently, what I'm reading, to I'm still reading what I was reading last week, Gears of War, Jacinto's Remnant. As I said, it was my birthday last week, so which most of the time when I read, so I try to read pretty much every day throughout the week. But I was just so busy throughout the week that I didn't get around to reading as much as I wanted to, and then over the weekend from Friday to Sunday, was very busy, very hectic, so I didn't get to read as much. So even though I'm recording this on the Wednesday, I'm not that far ahead. So there's no real update in terms of what I'm reading. I'm still reading the same thing, still enjoying it, still a great book, highly recommend. If you want to know what book that is, go back to last week's and give it a listen if you haven't already. What I'm currently listening to, I finished majority of. It took me forever because it was 4 hours long, but it was a conversation Joe Rogan had with. I did have his name on top of my tongue, and I've lost it. He's a philosopher. Well, he's a philosopher. He's a public speaker. I don't really know what you'd call him. But it was like 4 hours long. It took me forever to finish it. Did that one, and then I went through the Friendship Onion with Billy and Dom. Finished that, and what else did I do? I listened to my friend's podcast, Gaming Gains, which is pretty good actually. I really liked that. It was nice to have a different perspective on a topic that I'd also spoken about on a prior episode, so it was really nice to kind of have his perspective on that. I'm currently listening to Wrestling with Freddie because I've got loads of his episodes to catch up with, generally loads. He had, like I said, I mentioned earlier, he had an interview with The Miz that I listened to. Then he quite recently that I listened to, he had an interview with Macaulay Culkin, the same kid from Home Alone. It turns out he's a huge wrestling fan as well, and that apparently he's really good writer, and that Freddie wanted to get him to start writing WWE stories. And that they're on about setting up their own wrestling federation and all that. Generally, it's like I said, I'm not much of a wrestling fan, but I'm getting into it because of Freddie Prinze Jr. So I highly recommend it. But that's what I'm currently listening to, Wrestling with Freddie. But to be honest, the amount of episodes that come out, but like the amount of podcasts that I listen to, and the amount of episodes that they come out with, it's so much that I always have something to listen to. But in terms of books, in terms of what I'm listening to, like I said, I'm going to start The Count of Monte Cristo maybe tomorrow, or maybe tonight. Depends on when I can get around to finishing some of the podcasts and other things. So The Count of Monte Cristo would be the next one that I start. Like I said, it's about 53 hours long, so it's going to be a long one. Not the longest book I've ever listened to. I think Les Miserables was longer. But no, I look forward to it. I'm a big fan of the movie, and I love I'm interested in the characters, so I look forward to finally getting around to actually reading the book. What I'm currently watching, well, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. As you guys know, on a Wednesday is Book of Boba Fett Day. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the newest episode, so don't worry, no spoilers from me. Just wanted to let you know I enjoyed it, and then moving on. I recently got into Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I remember watching parts of it as growing up. I remember watching parts of Buffy, but never really actually watching Buffy. It was like something I always wanted to watch, but like again, growing up, being the youngest child, didn't really get much control of the TV. My sister had control of the TV, and if she didn't have control, it was my parents. And obviously, when I was younger, I didn't really want to watch Buffy. I wanted to watch, Cartoon Network. I wanted to watch like Robot Boy and Ben 10, Fairly Odd Parents and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I could go on and on and on. I wanted to watch cartoons, the good stuff. So again, I missed out on Buffy. So it's one of them. It's up there with like your Buffy, X-Files, Stargate, maybe even Battlestar Galactica. It's those sort of shows that I missed when I was younger or before my time that I wanted to watch, but obviously never got around to it. So I will slowly get around to watching them. It was between Buffy and X-Files. I chose Buffy because it's 7 seasons and X-Files like 12. Each one of them had, like, each episode's about an hour long. I figured, 7 seasons is easier to get through than 10. So I do Buffy. I'm really enjoying it. I'm still on season 1, but I'm loving the character of Buffy and Xander. I just think it's really cool. And like, it's just one of the moments of like when you watch a show that you remember everybody talking about, but you never get around to it, and then you watch it later on in life. It's that moment of like, I can see now why people liked it. This is generally really, really good. I love the characters. I'm loving their chemistry. It's well done, well written. It's interesting. And also, it's just a look back at how TV was made, considering, like, some things in Buffy, like, I don't think they would do that nowadays. There's certain things of, like, yeah, I don't think that they would do that topic, or that you would see a program doing this, nowadays, which is a shame, because it's good horror, sort of, I won't say combat, but, like, I'm really enjoying Buffy. I really am. I'm enjoying the characters, and I'm Sarah Michelle Gellar. Like, I've always had a bit of a crush on her, which is funny. I've had a crush on her, and I have a man crush on Freddie Prinze, her husband. I'm just in love with the family. Let's just be honest. I love Freddie Prinze's dad. I think he's hilarious. He died too soon, and the guy was a fantastic comedian. Freddie Prinze Jr. in himself is a fantastic actor and a great inspirational guy. Sarah Michelle Gellar, again, herself, fantastic actress, beautiful, just all of them fantastic, incredibly talented family. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying Buffy. Absolutely fantastic. If you haven't watched Buffy, I'd recommend it. If you have watched Buffy, you know how good it is. What I'm currently playing, again, almost finished Mass Effect. Almost finished Mass Effect 3. I am just currently landed in London, and I'm about to take on the final push to take out the Reapers. So that should be fun. I've done it many times, but each time it's quite sad to do it. But also, actually, quite recently, I started playing Deadpool, the game. If you don't, if you guys remember that from, like, 2012, 2013, it came out, made by High Moon Studios. Made by, like I said, made by High Moon, published by Activision. It was a game I've always wanted to play. Never really got around to it. Hoped to play it on Xbox One. Problem was, High Moon and Activision didn't redo the license, so they lost the license, which meant every single digital version of that game you couldn't get, which meant the physical copies of the game went up in price, became more expensive, and I was like, nah, screw that. Anyway, I was going through, found my old Xbox 360, felt like playing on the 360, and I didn't realise that I had a copy of Deadpool on there, the full game, so I've basically been playing through Deadpool. Absolutely fantastic. I am loving it. Again, Deadpool's one of my favourite sort of comic book characters, and I understand that game got a lot of flack and got a lot of sort of bad press when it came out. People say it was repetitive. I say it's really fun. It's silly. It's what a Deadpool game would be. If you was to make a game with Deadpool, how would it be? That's it. The Deadpool the game. It's fantastic. Probably one of the best comic book sort of games that I've played in a long time. And hopefully, that sort of Microsoft now has High Moon back, that it will redo the license and we'll get like a Deadpool 2 game for the Xbox. That'd be really, really cool. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. Like they say, as I mentioned in my side quest, the deal hasn't gone through yet. Probably won't go through to the end of the year, so it probably won't be till next year that we'll start seeing the benefits of this deal. But even so, I'm interested to see, and I'm enjoying Deadpool. And even if they never make one, I really like my time with the game so far. So I'll cherish it. It probably won't be long till I finish it, to be honest. But still, fun and enjoyable. But yeah, so that's what I'm updates on those things. Nothing really much else to say. There will be a side quest this week, because it was in the news recently that Sony has bought and acquired Bungie for about 6.3 billion, which at first I was quite excited about it, and I still am, but I just feel like Bungie's not worth that much. But again, we'll talk about it in the side quest, so make sure to check back. Maybe Saturday. Check back on Saturday for a new episode of side quest where I delve deeper into that topic. But yeah, so that's about it really. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it, as always. I think I went a bit spiritual, a bit too spiritual here, but I didn't plan it to go like that, but it went like that, and I'm glad it did, because it was a very sort of nice, enlightening sort of topic and something to talk about. And a few friends of mine have told me to go into being more spiritual with doing this, and I said to him, I would try. I won't force it. When it comes, it comes, and it came, and it did fantastically. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked it. I've always been bad about signing off. I never know how to sign off. I just want to keep going, because I enjoy what I do. But you can't have too much of a good thing, and it's got to end eventually. So I'm just going to sign off now. I don't know how long this one went for. Probably went for more than an hour. Sorry if it didn't. But again, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. So we end off now. Stop babbling. Stop waffling. So, as always, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace. Thank you for listening to this episode of What Page Are You On? With me, your host, Luke, the Ginger Bookworm.